So, good morning. Thank you to the organizers for inviting us. Thank you for a very, very inspiring meeting. And we've had so many really great presentations, inspiring, encouraging, whatever, that we thought now the audience is entitled to a really awful presentation with negligible content. So, here you are. Now see whether I can do this.
Well, yeah, just...
Right, okay, so this is very, very itchy, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, thanks to Mrs. Kreiser, you all know us from that point, so I would like to give you a very short overview where we come from and what is our purpose from that point. The university's medical center, I just learned it, it's not a university hospital, it's a medical center, is located far in the north. It's not too far away from Berlin, it's just 2 hours ride by train. We have two sites, one in the capital city of Schleswig-Holstein in Kiel, and the other one in Lübeck, which is also close next to the Baltic Sea. And as far as I know, we are the second largest university medical center in Germany, with more than 2,200 beds. And as you can see, also the patient numbers are very impressive. So we have round about 100,000 patients which are treated in-house, and more than 300,000 patients who are outer patients. We're talking about ambulances and so on. Also, the UKSH, I'm sorry, I'm still trying to pronounce right, is the largest employer in the area. So we have more than 13,000 staff members, from the clinicians to us working at the administration. So quite impressive.
Okay, UDI, as you know, has one main motive, has had one main motive for the FDA, and of course the same main motives in all other regions, EU and other parts, that is patient safety. And there's two prerequisites for safe use of medical devices. One is that you can reliably and easily identify the device that's in your hand, that you want to have, that you want to buy, and that you want to apply to the patient in patient care. And the other aspect is for patient safety is that you have to know the properties of the device. So you need knowledge and content about that device. So accordingly, all the UDI regulations that we've been speaking about, FDA on the one hand and EU on the other hand, have two components. One is the component dealing with identification. On the one hand, identifying the device, on the other hand, identifying when and maybe where it has been produced. And the other is a repository for data about the product.
Yeah, but there's no big surprise. It's not only patient safety. There's also something about processes. And I think that for us in the hospital was something challenging, and we will come on these details or the challenges we had further on. So on one hand side, you have got logistic, easy, track and trace, all the benefits. If you can scan, you can know where it is, you can know if you do have right stock or everything like that. But how does it impact also the clinical processes? And that is really a key issue out of our project at that point.
Speaking of medical processes, I mean, it is trivial, basic language, like Logistics 101. If you want to have a good process, you have to have in the right place at the right time the patient, the people wanting to treat the patient, the apparatus that you need to treat the patient, like your electrosurgery apparatus or your X-ray machine or your echocardiograph, and you have to have all the devices, the consumables that we are talking about these days. But that is not enough. What you also need, implicitly, is information about all these things. You need information about the patient, about the providers. For example, is there somebody in the room that knows how to operate that X-ray machine? Have they been trained? Are they even legally permitted to put their fingers on that machine? And how does that machine work? and what are the properties of my devices? And that's what we're talking about. So to have a safe and expeditious clinical process, you need that information. And that is not trivial. I'm a controller now, but in a former life I was an anesthetist. And I remember a number of situations where I drove surgeons nuts by saying, no, I can't give anesthesia to this patient because the X-ray, the lab result, whatever, which I required yesterday when I visited the patient and prepared him for the anesthesia, that were missing then, and they're not here yet. So get me that result, and then I start. They didn't understand that really. Over years they didn't understand it. They never will. But the same is true for information about all the other components, including, of course, the consumables.
So far, this was the easy part, to define wishes, to think about what could be the good thing, what's happening, how can we improve patient safety, how can we improve our processes from that point. But then the big stumbling stone was coming into, we try to implement all these nice things. And yes, to be honest, when we started the project, I thought, well, it's easy because we have good supplier base, we have good contacts, you just send out an Excel list and you get everything back and it's done within 15 minutes and we are fine and we can start and go into the scanning process, which was our key business at that point. Well, it was a thought. It took us at least 1.5 years to get the information back to us in the way as we need it and as it is requested in the right way. And I won't say it was a failure of our supplier base. It was just what are you asking for? So we had a very wide range, from large companies, international operating companies who were very aware about the necessities of I call it barcoding, so putting the right identification on the products. But we also work with very small suppliers, with specialists who just do set packing. He looked at me and like, what are you talking about? And we had to explain it. And this was really a challenge for us. And yeah, we're still working on it, but we see also a positive effect now with UDI and now with the new initiative. So this really speed up the process. So nowadays it's quite easy to say, we need to have or ask for on a regular basis to get an update, what is changing. It comes in automatically. So I have to ensure that somebody can understand and put it into our systems from that point. But at the beginning, this was really, really the big issue. And also management in the organization. As you can see, hospitals are working slightly different than manufacturers. So for us, I call it our core process is to heal persons, to heal patients, to get, somebody mentioned, what is our outcome? I said, to have a healthy person walking out the door. That's our output. So we are not talking about regulatory, we are not talking about lists of components and everything like that. So this is really strange for a lot of people in the organization. They have not a lot of IT affinity from that as well. So managing these different skill sets, knowledges, also handling the restriction like, I don't want to touch this. Why should I? And it costs me time because I have to support the surgeon. I'm not there to beep, and it's not working. So that was one of the challenging. How do we make it possible for the personnel in our ORs and in the overall staff? Because logistics had the same issue. So if you look into warehouses, you might have seen very, very promising examples on the first day from the colleagues in Great Britain. So that's what I'm dreaming from, to be honest. That's something, all right, I would like to have it, but it's a long way to go there. So that's having everything around. This is really a challenging part from that point.
Right, and just to touch briefly on one point that is by nature not the main focus of GS1 or of like external data communication, that is the data flow within the organization. Just to mention it, our dream is that the people at the point of care have all the necessary information available, and that at the point of care, identification of the device is an easy and reliable process, but that requires that all the information about device identification and about attributes have freely flow throughout the IT landscape of the hospital, which, you might not find this surprising, is not the case. And so we have a big task there. It might not be the primary responsibility of an organization like GS1, but it would be nice if when GS1 people or people affiliated to GS1 talk about UDI, they also keep in mind and maybe mention at the proper situation that there is a challenge for the hospitals. I mean, you heard the lady from Biomérieux, sorry for forgetting your name, mentioning sort of an IT landscape that is inhomogeneous. So I realized, and it was consoling for me, that we're not the only ones with the problem. So the challenge of inhomogeneous IT systems, and it is a big challenge. So coming back to our original topic, which is availability of master data about identification and additional attributes from external sources, you have to organize the communication. And the traditional communication, of course, is many to many. And that is not, really not at all, what you want to do, because that is extremely cumbersome and extremely error-prone. We have a lot of errors in our master data because of this shoddy way of communication. So it was quite clear that one-to-many via a data hub is what you have to do, because then you have to, the only communication you have to organize is to one place, that is the data hub. And this is a natural thing to do, and Mr. Imad pointed out that, of course, for a manufacturer, it's a natural thing to do, and it's the same thing for the data recipient in the hospital. And so we embarked in the project. You've seen this sort of the schema or this graphic depiction from Mr. Imad already. This is the sort of the depiction of how the GDSN data pool works. And together with One World Sync and a company that sort of made the software for, is that the pointer? Yeah, the software for sort of receiving the data out of the pool and integrating it into our ERP system. We embarked into a project to get master data out of the GDSN pool from our main suppliers.
Yeah, I already mentioned, so things were not so easy, and to be honest, I think 2 weeks ago we had to present where we are with the project, and it's always a pain if you stand there and say, well, we missed some of the major milestones, and then you start to explain why. But as I mentioned, there are some challenges which are not related because we both, or the team behind us, not working properly. There are a lot of things which are really changing the organization, and we just learned today that change management and changing major issues is something which can take a lot of time and which is completely unestimated or underestimated when you set up your project plan from that point. So I don't know if you know how many hospitals do have a proper working master data management, which is common in industry. So most of you have a proper working master data management. I found 5 in Germany. So establishing the rules for master data management, and normally it's somewhere procurement, logistics, where you put it in because we do not have a production process, means you have to define rules. You have to think out of the box. You're not talking any longer about procurement data, so just for use for talking or collaboration between our vendors and us. Now suddenly we have to ensure that our master data in the ERP system also works for the clinicians, works for their purposes. So talking about the regulation needs putting the implant pass and so on. Procurement says, I want to have a cannula size X dimension epsilon, and that's it. If you put everything, or I would like to have a hip implant. So that's it, what we put in our master data. But if you go to the clinician software and what their outcome to the doctors' letters and everything like that, they want to have the precise device in there. They want to know, okay, it comes from supplier A, and this is the device number and everything like that. For us, a no-go, because we are neutral. So that's really the change and the challenge for us to put a system in place. And you can imagine, I mentioned we have 2 different sites, and we are a university, so everybody in the hospital is a god, to be honest. Right. And no, we can't change it. This is the only way we do it. And I'm not relying on what my colleague in Lübeck or in Kiel says. So it's really like managing a zoo sometimes. It's like you have to put it, and sometimes you make a decision and they are not pleased to it, and then, it doesn't work. You procurement, you are guilty. You didn't put the right data inside. So that was one of the challenges. And of course, you need resources to do so. So, and to convince the upper management to get resources for such a funny project, which has no benefit in regards of the medicine use from that point, on one hand side, in the first glance, that's really what took us a lot of time. But now I'm happy to say since 2 weeks I've got the allowance to increase my team for master data management. I can hire people, and I'm pretty sure the next step of our project is moving fast because we learned a lot. We have a kind of blueprint in the meantime, and I'm getting resources. So I can send 2 teams to the ER and go and scan and verify all the products by heart to see before it goes online with the team there. And as I mentioned, it's a cultural shock. I had a lot of discussion with my own team. Why do we have to do this? Or what is a base unit? I ever did this in a way like that. So why do I have to change? And no, I don't want to do it because I have to ensure that the outside personnel or the clinic personnel can understand there might be a substitution from that point. So really to get also the mind shift in the hearts of all the people involved in the project, in the process, is a challenging part. And it takes time, and it needs understanding. And it's not only done by training. It's really like they have to understand what does it mean. Where does my data flow through? And into a very inhomogeneous clinical information systems world as we are in, this is a challenging part for the guys in logistics. But we are moving on from that point. And then we had an unlikely event. So we changed the procurement organization, the GPO, which is at the moment a change of priorities. So that's something which you handle, and we heard it. So I think it's very clear for everybody. But as I said, now we have a certain setup of new things, and we promise to improve and to be speedy and bring the things into the harbor.
Okay, I just watched Ms. Savatic take a photograph of our absolutely most ugly slide. So
it's already on the internet.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have to say that our partners, like the software company N1 WorldSync and the suppliers that were supposed to be on the pilot, they all did their homework, and we're gonna hand our homework in a bit late, but we're gonna do it. Master data content is okay for logistics and procurement, and we already spoke about it. The clinical aspects are the aspects that are the area providing a lot of additional value for healthcare providers, and we were very glad to learn, pointed to some literature by nice colleagues within GS1 that, very itchy, that other people have been thinking along those lines, and that is very encouraging. Even a work group including Mr. UDI himself, further supported by the FDA, have done research and have tried to think about extended uses for UDI, and maybe you have followed the discussion yesterday about supplemental data, and maybe even a supplemental UDI database. We heard from the ladies of the FDA yesterday that the FDA itself doesn't see itself in a position to host such a database for supplemental data, so that will have to be organized by whomever. But it is encouraging to learn that this added value information on on the products is in the minds of a lot of people, just like our thinking.
Yeah, and it will be a benefit. I think you said everything from that point.
Okay, and then I'll just go on if you allow. Just to conclude, there is encouraging activity, and just to leave you with a more positive note, the Alliance for Action on Patient Safety in Germany, which is quite renowned for a lot of lobby work and publications on patient safety, working together with the Federation of University Medical Centers in Germany, is right now on its way to devise, write up, and publish a recommendation for how UDI can be put to best use for patient safety and safe clinical processes. And you might hear more about that in the near future. So there is an entire movement sort of moving in a direction that we find the right direction. Okay, thank you for bearing with that. Thank you for your attention.